Some of the events that you're going to hear on this podcast, on this episode, may be difficult for some to listen to. So I express deep caution as you hear some of this information, which also may be triggering for most. Thank you. Welcome back to another episode of Culture Unplugged. This is where the silence ends, and I'm your host, Uncle Chris. And on this channel, we discuss the real stories of hazing, the victims who have been silenced forever, the families who have been left grieving, and the community who is asking for when this is going to stop. When are the schools going to be fully held accountable, and the perpetrators, defendants behind these such cases are also being held accountable. So if you're in this fight with us against hazing, I encourage you to follow this podcast. This is episode 3, my testimony, and I am excited to but also a bittersweet to kind of bring that information, that recollection, that thought process back to you. Some things may come across a little all over the place, but bear with me. I may even have a couple coughs or two, so forgive me on that as well. But either way, if it's your first time joining Culture Unplugged, please also follow us on TikTok and also check out our YouTube space if you haven't as well, where you can see me on screen. So wherever you are listening to this podcast, I thank you for your time and just being able to hear my story. It truly, truly means a lot. Let me just say a few things as well. If you enjoy this space, hearing about these stories, which are also hard to talk about, please, I encourage you to support the movement and wear the movement. You can visit our shop. We have a gift shop that's attached to our YouTube through Fourth Wall. We have a few products that are there, and you can check us out and hopefully support us. That would mean a lot to the movement to help share these stories and take the time to be able to share them with love, light, and grace. But either way, I appreciate your support, just being here nonetheless. So, this is episode 3. This is my testimony, where the silence ends. And I am coming to realization this is 17 years this month, in the thick of it. 17 years ago, in 2009, I was in the heart of my process with joining this organization, a very well-known HBCU, how should I say this, Divine Nine organization, right? And this organization was very much the, how should I say, they were definitely not they weren't like the completely popular one, I should say, but they were still very much a prominent organization on campus. They were seen, and in my view, they had a type of appeal that it looked interesting to me. Where the story started for me, this was my second year at an HBCU in Virginia. And just letting you know, too, before I continue, that some of the things I'm not going to be able to share 100% as far as actual names of the school that this occurred, and then, of course, the organization that I'm speaking about. But as I'm telling the story, I'll let your thoughts and your conclusions kind of form them, if that makes sense. Form your opinions and how you felt about this story. But anyway, so as I was going to it, I was dating this girl at a school prior to this, and this chick and I, we're pretty close at the time, and she decided to join the sorority that I was gonna be, the sorority to the fraternity that I had eventually had interest in joining. And I started to see some things that were, a little of a stress for her, whether she came home and looked like she was tired, or, she just kind of wore like hoodies, sweater, things that kind of just hid her overall look, if that makes sense. Like she just was in a sort of less of appeal, so to speak. But anyway, getting into it, I seen that she eventually joined the sorority. She came out. She had all this different, the different paraphernalia, the uniform colors, and she knew how to do the strolls. So she just came right on out into it, and that was her new life. As she's starting this new life in this sorority in college, and it just seemed fun. It seemed exciting. I even joined in a couple events that the fraternity to the sorority was a part of, and I just seen how the family camaraderie was, and it was a nice setup. And I think at that chapter at that school, it was just totally a different type of feel, I'm sure, and maybe have done things differently than most schools or most chapters at different campuses, but it was still an experience to witness and see. I decided to transfer, and I went to a bigger HBCU in Virginia. I'll just say that. And so at this particular school, there was just a lot of anxiety. For me, I was anxious. I was anxious about what what would be new, the friends I'd make, the experiences I'll have, just kind of finding a way to make a name for myself. And this is just like many students who go to a new school or they're of course, as far as college, their first time at an HBCU or a bigger HBCU, you get some of those feelings of uncertainty and wanting to just, of course, belong. As my time and experience got closer to my next year, my junior year, I knew I wanted to start the process to be a part of a fraternity. And I had already had my own conclusions about what fraternity that would be based on my experience being around the members of the prior school that I was at. So if you're still following me, thank you. Because sometimes I feel like it takes me a bit to get this out because we're talking about 17 years later. But let's kind of fast forward. But I met a friend of mine who was a part of the fraternity at the school, we were both at. And we got pretty cool. Just it was usually like a high and by situation. I think we had a class together, something like that. And after that, it was like let's connect a little bit further. But I seen that he decided to be a part of the organization that I also had interest in, and he crossed into it. When I say cross, he's have been already initiated and he's a part of that organization. But something about him looked different, if that makes sense. Like his personality kind of changed, kind of looked like he was just getting arrogant, like he just became like this arrogant dude in the way he moved and the way he walked. But it was slight. It was nothing that I could say, well, he's a part of this. Maybe just hype off of that he's a part of this group. But anyhow, I noticed then that he might be a good connection for me to kind of let him know that I wanted to be a part of it and I wanted to understand it and all that good stuff and see if it'd be a good fit for me. And he basically shared with me, to first of all, you want to go to an interest meeting, you want to be there, you want to, do your best to just pay attention to who's who in the room, remember information, start learning some information about the organization. You gotta do a lot to impress upon that you are the best fit for the fraternity. So that meant, of course, being at the informational, going to the events, and I went to a few events. They had a few things that were going on campus that I just started to pop up at, and they started to notice, obviously. And one day, as I was working on campus, I used getting to off be of work around 7. I remember guy, the person who was in the 5, kitchen, I think it was, and I had to be there money on campus around 7, 8 o'clock, and it was just that I needed to be other guys that also would meet up somewhere. Be there. Like, so I finished my shift, I got myself together. I'm nervous. I don't know what to expect. And we're just literally going down the street from where the school was. And we meet up sort of like at this alley kind of way, like this open, eerie space after dark. It's not that well lit at all. And it's about, as I'm pulling up, there's like other cars pulling up. So maybe like 15 to 23 people are on this little area, whatever, kind of looking at each other like, hey, you here for that XYZ? Everybody start to kind of see each other people who are interested, and guys that start talking amongst themselves, and there's the curiosity, but the excitement, like, yeah, we about to be in here. Yeah, man, I always wanted to be in this group. Da 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 da. So all that interest and excitement builds from there. And fast forward from that to actually meeting up at a physical location where we had to show up to. And this physical location was a house. And this house basically was like a small, like old school house. Not much relevance to say, just to kind of give you a picture of how this felt like for me. It was just like one of those old school 70s homes with the carpet, alpaca rug type of carpet. And it wasn't like a big spot. It was just something that, you came in, the traditional home of the 70s is what it felt like. But this would be the location where all the physical hazing happened, which is what really this story boils down to. So to kind of keep it in perspective to just some fragments of events, they're about I say there's about 23 of us. I think in the end it kind of goes down to about eight because there were people that we call dropped. In this part of the season of where I'm at with everything, this is like around August of 2009, September 2009, somewhere around that time frame. And in that time frame, obviously, there's getting ready to be homecoming. And I mentioned this in the video on YouTube that, a homecoming on a HBCU campus is for organizations, for those who are on a pledge line, is one of the most dangerous times to be on a pledge line. Simple for the fact that you have all this alumni that is going to be coming back to campus to relive their hazing experiences for when they joined from years prior or the line before them. And so our pledge line at the time, I think it had dropped to maybe about like nine, or maybe it was like 10 or 11 of us. Excuse me. And so something around there is the number. But to put this in perspective, to kind of really rally around everything else that already happened, which means it was a progressive thing. From the first night, we had to do basically exercises and calisthenics and being in one space and room and thinking that, we're going to be done. But we had to, recite this information, know who the founders were. We had to basically just kind of get exposed. It's like a progressive thing. And the progressive aspect of it is you're starting off with, like I said, the exercises starts off as the first mode of how the members of the organization start to kind of impose what the process will start to look like. And for the first things you'll know too, by the way, in Greek life, HBCU Greek life culture, there's no skating as they call it. It's no easy process. The road is long, the road is hard. That's the story that is the kind of like the sacred aspect of the process. It's to pull you through this process that's going to be tough. It's going to give you a lot of challenge, and it's going to be more of a mental aspect to it. The physical part will come, but it's going to be a mental mind game for you. Anyone who tells you some of these things, if you're familiar with what I'm saying, then you know it to be true as well, that these are just some of the common themes that are being shared in the HBCU Greek community, especially when it comes to someone who's looking to be a part of the organization. But let me keep on going. So I recall the from that period of time preparing for this homecoming. Okay, and there were going to be so many different people coming on campus and alumni coming to see us. When I see us, I mean it's me and about 10 other guys And the leading up to it, we had to know information like I shared earlier. We had to have specialty greetings. And just to give you a little makeup of the pledge line, the pledge line is the dean, which is like I said, like the father of the line, the person who is really like your protector, your guide. He's going to give you tough love. It's just all what's coming to me. So just bear with me. Excuse me. And then you have the ADP, which is the person who's like the second in command. That person is there and set up to give direction, but more of like the militant type when it comes down to the process to join the organization. And I can tell you, my ADP was someone who was prior military. And that is the thing that kind of shares a little bit about how and why my process was so rigorous is because the ADP, which is by the way the assistant dean of pledges. You had the dean, who is the dean of pledges, and then you have the assistant dean of pledges. So that person again, basically, for me, was very ruthless and very severe in the way how he was hoping. I guess he saw this line to look like. You have to have intensity, which is always shared. You have to be in one unison. Each person on that pledge line must be uniformed in how they give information. And one person from the front of the line, who is the shortest to the, which is the ace, down to the tail, who's the tallest person, has to be on one accord and one beat, one sound. If it's something that where I eat, no, it's not I eat, we eat. Everything is we. We do this, we go there, we've done that. That's in their eyes, and that culture makes you seem as though you are truly a brotherhood, those who can be trusted to be a part of this organization. This is the realm of how deep it goes. So it's to give you the psychological aspect that you are yourself. If you follow what I'm saying, it's not about you anymore. Everything you do has to involve or the thought of where your brother is, the person who's also in the pledge line with you. That pledge line of brothers, we're all in unison. We're all looking out for each other. So we all have to what? Protect each other. So the protection part of it, there were several nights where we started getting introduced to being slapped on the chest, having what was called thunderclap. And that's when you're taking two hands and you're rubbing it together to give that feeling like it's a heated hand and laying it, hard on your skin or someone else's skin. So just kind of picture we're all standing together side by side, you, the pledge line members, and you're trying to take your hand and protect the other person from getting hit on the right, from their chest, and on the left. So I think about stories like the very real story with Caleb Wilson and how they were punching him and he wasn't being protected. Now, I'm not saying or encouraging his experience of him being harmed or being hit, but what I'm trying to give to you is that these are some things that's so dangerous that you're thinking you're now responsible if someone on to the right of you or to the left of you who's also just as much interested in being a part of this organization, being a part of this fraternity, sorority, that you're going to do whatever you can to protect him, even if it meant sacrificing your own life. That's how deep this goes. So, back to the homecoming. We're getting all information. We have to be on accord. We have to be 100%. And if we're not, it's a wrap for us. We're going to get beat. We're going to get calisthenics. We're going to have to sit on the wall. If you don't know what that feels like, that's a horrible feeling. Let me just tell you. But having you sit on the wall, or basically you're looking like you're on a chair, you're using your back weight to hold you up against the wall in a sitting motion, a sitting position. And you can't move. Sometimes 20 seconds, they make you wait 50, a minute or so, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. And it's really a test of will at that point. But moving on, this homecoming is now getting close, and every person has been assigned to do something. I think I had to fry up some chicken. Maybe no, I'm sorry. That wasn't homecoming. That was actually Super Bowl Sunday. But I had to. Everybody had a part to play in this, and if it wasn't right, it was gonna be bad because the alumni, of course, is gonna be in the room, and they already shared with us how crazy it could get. Excuse me. So as that night now is upon us, everyone has brought in everything they're supposed to bring. I think we had to get groceries and snacks. We had to prepare stuff. And for what I remember, we all had to do something called lockup. Now, what that is that the person who's in the front of the line, who's the ace. He has his arms out. He's kind of like marching in, and it forms the same person. Let's say I'm in behind him, and I've got my hands interlocked with his hands from the back, and there's one person behind me, and we're kind of trailing in, looking like a human centipede, something like that, right? And we're all marching in this room, and it's filled with members of the organization and the sorority who's there. And of course, it's getting loud, it's getting crazy. You know what I mean? Loud and crazy. The other members are just yelling, anxious to start putting their hands on us. And the dean's supposed to be the one to say, all right, bros, chill out, chill out, chill out. The ADP helps protect us from getting hurt more from others. It depends. And then they'll say, okay, pop out. Basically, you're moving yourself, you're dragging yourself, you're taking literally your hand and basically slapping against your chest to pull yourself out of the pledge line and share what information you know. And if you don't know it, that's going to be your behind, because guess what? They're going to tell you to get in the cut. Get in the cut is to get in a kind of a what do you call it? You're basically putting your knees down, squatting down just a little bit. You got a hand out, and that's when someone who is a lot larger than you, a lot taller than you, decides to take their very grown adult energy, hands, even holding 2-inch thick plywood they call a paddle, and use that with such force against your buttock area and slam that piece of object across your body. Where if you move a certain way, right? Let's just say you move a certain way, or something happens where your hand forgets to protect something that's so precious like your groin area, your testicle area for a man, that he would have take that thing and slam it the wrong way, it's a wrap. Whatever future of you having children is gone, because he's just damaged what you got in between your legs. If you follow what I'm saying, or other harm that could just happen. We're talking about the human body, and we're talking about grown ass men, excuse my language, but grown ass men who decide to put their hands on young children, especially those who are much smaller than them, in order to be a part of tradition. And this was my experience. That night, it progressed. It started, we saw the full first sign of what that experience is going to be like. This is our pre pledge line that we're talking about here, right? Your pre pledge line, you have to kind of see, based on everything that happens, well, you'll be able to be considered to go on the real line. The real line really starts the process. You get the first taste and the pre line, your actual full line, they're going to ask you for your GPA. You're going to have to start putting some money aside for dues to be a part of the organization. You got to pay money, over $1,000, by the way. Excuse me, I'm just coughing on this podcast, so my apologies a lot. But as the story goes, and in between, even after that, before we're having to go on December break that year in 2008, I remember we had to do errands that are going to be for the members of the organization. Could be for anybody. Could be an alumni who doesn't even go to the school anymore. It could be for someone who, you know, who was in the same year as you, who crossed, or whatever the case may be. It doesn't matter if they're part of that organization. You're not. You're online. Whatever the request is, for the most part, you have to do. Okay, that could mean a food delivery situation. That could be literally moving someone into a house, which I've done. It could mean you having to just do some type of project, all type of stuff. Some stuff it just depends, whatever it is. Some stuff you may say seems very silly, weird, out of the norm. Believe you me, we did it. We had to. So there was a lot of that we had to get ready for. But we were a little optimistic and we hopeful. We connected. We got ourselves a little more grounded as a pledge line. Some of us was very close. Some of us not so close. But we were all basically hoping that we get fully selected for the full pledge line. So fast forward, past winter break, we come back. It's January. Of course, school doesn't start back to like January 21st, something around that nature. I believe it was either just after Martin Luther King Day, might have been a couple days prior, but I know that nobody was on campus yet, but we had to be there early. And we weren't necessarily on campus, but we had to be with the pledge line. This is the gloves off. The dean had already told us that this is going to be where things going to get real. And each of us have already shared, we're not dropping. Not dropping because it's not only frowned upon to drop, but it wasn't something that, we were going to allow ourselves to do. We had already kind of promised it for each other. And to have that experience of dropping and seeing each other, seeing that one person on campus who's just not even there anymore, it doesn't feel good, doesn't look good. So the first night was our first time experiencing getting wood. No pun intended, but getting wood was the paddle that I mentioned earlier. Instead of it being like 2 or 3 whacks with that against the skin of your buttocks, try 50 to 100 times. If you're lucky, 20 to 30 times, 20 to 50 times in one night. But we took it. And some of us had a hard time where it became an issue because of the fear of obviously of getting hit, right? Or getting abused by this thing. But some of us had an issue just with overall confidence in knowing the information, or the greeting didn't sound right. So we pop out, we'd say something wrong. We'd get on our dean or our ADP's nerves, and he's telling us to get on the floor, do push-ups till our arms give away. And every time you get hit, you got to say a founder. You got to say the name of a founder of the organization. So all this stuff that's happening, both physical, both verbal, and beyond, is just becoming a total breakdown. Because now, as we're coming out of week 1 in this thing, we not only get our first taste of what brutal hazing looks like, but we're starting to lose ourselves very quickly. Psychologically, there's so much happening between me and the other guys on the pledge line. Some of us just having a lot of doubts. We're having to massage each other's behinds every chance we get, because you don't want the blood clot to form, and then you have a major medical issue. That's all really life and death situations here that we're talking about. But we're also talking about guys who are much bigger than us. At the time, I'm about 21, something of that nature. I'm about 21 years old. And I was a chubby kid, chubby guy, but they knew that, and they wanted to exploit that for me to lose weight. And they put like a garbage bag on me for me to sweat out the weight, obviously, to make sure I look sexy, which is what a few guys had come across to share with me. Let's get you sexy. Let's have this look. And, it's all about, at the end of the day, the reaffirming of sexuality and how you're seen. And that aesthetic to be a big guy and sloppy, in this organization was a no-go. You wasn't going to get girls that way, according to them. And the dean had mentioned to me, when you cross, man, you're gonna get all these girls, and you have girls just throwing themselves at you, and this and that. It was almost like that. That was the prestige, you know, like someone who is proud to, I don't know, just win this award or this like this is the next achievement in your success in life. Is to be a part of this fraternity, have an experience where you can sleep with multiple women at any given time. That's the mantra that's put out there. That's the perk that's given, in that space. But I come to understand why that is, just because every fraternity, sorority, party I typically stumbled upon, or even on campus during homecomings, you could see how they're just admired. You could see how the members of these organizations are just, they kind of have a sense of power on campus. For those who join and they have that, they're already a part of that culture. It's a family. It's a big, it's like a prestigious honor in that community. As far as the collegiate HBCU community goes, it's just the way that is permeated. And I think it comes from the long line of historical and notable people who have also been a part of these organizations that continue to influence membership, which include Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Kamala Harris, and many, many others who have just shown prominence. And that's pretty much where that road leads to. But the story kind of gets a little crazier as the weeks get closer to my time, where things kind of get really wild for me. So it becomes into week 2, and I started to notice that maybe on one of the nights, and we've had many nights where we're just practicing for hours, information, the founders, the history, the greetings, different things that we can do to get better. And we have all different ventures of interest. I had really just one interest in one of the pledges who were I was really cool with. I think I saw a lot of our history and culture from family to be relatable, but you start to think you know somebody, but you really don't. And um, as I was getting into it, each week is getting crazier. But one of the nights, a paddle had hit me in the sharpest edge of the paddle, and it punctured or broke the skin of my right gluteus, my right butt cheek. Once that happened, it became a catalyst for me to be in a hospital and have 2 surgeries later, because what was happening, and this picture, this is January. It is cold as ever around this time, freezing temperatures, and the many nights of being paddled in the same spot, basically until the white meat is showing, if you know what I mean, because of the tear of the skin. This is a time when, you know, bandages are not going to necessarily be the only thing that's going to heal that thing. It's just not, especially if it's repeatedly being hit with a hard paddle, hard surface, in the same spot. And there are many nights where we'd get done doing what we call set from, the early part of the evening until 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 4 o'clock in the morning. Can't get out the car. It's just so painful to even think about getting out the car, because you just want to sit down and keep the pressure so you don't have to think about it. Going to take a shower was a challenge. And I was losing myself this time. As the weeks got longer, and the pain started to get immeasurable, I really contemplated my own life, and I wanted to commit harm to not only myself, but a day when my dean and I was in the car and he was like arguing with me. I'm driving, he's arguing with me about my sense of photographic memory, about where to get to. And I'm like, I'll just end this right here. I'll just drive this car off the bridge and we could just go down together at the same time. And this is, right there at the rough rivers of Appomattox. I was ready to jump off, take that car and just drive it off the bridge, literally. That's how serious this had gotten for me. Um, and I wasn't anywhere closer to God than I really needed to be. I begged, I said, God, just if you could just hear my pain, if you could just hear my cries, please give me mercy. Help to see that this ends for me in the most peaceful way. And as I said that, it wasn't long from then, after many more nights of being abused and hearing the story of one member who had been a part of the organization for some years. Basically, I think he crossed in like the early 2000s, but he told me something like, how proud he was after, you get to this second stage, you cross the second stage, you get to that last stage, if you can make it. I remember I was peeing blood. I was like, what are you talking about? You're telling me you got yourself so damaged from other people who look like you, supposed to be a brother to you, and they damage you by a paddle in such a way that you're peeing blood and you feel proud to share that? So, what he's talking about as far as those stages, you have three stages. And the first stage, you're considered like a point one, whatever. After that, you're considered, it's a word called squire. If you know, you know. If you don't, that's okay. But you're a squire stage, and then the last stage, I'm just gonna call it the moon stage. But the second stage in this process, you for anyway, I can let me just recall that experience real quick because that was a catalyst. This was supposed to be a night where we were already warned it's going to be very tough. It's going to be very challenging. We're going to have to go through an experience that is going to be very painful, but it's going to be more mental than anything else. And that was to be wearing all in the same shirts, white shirts, with denim jeans, and we were to know our information. And but as we're having to recite this information, there were going to be different members who are going to beat me with their hands, using the paddle, repeatedly, one by one, 5 or 7 members at a time in a room while I'm blindfolded and I can't see where I'm getting beat from. I can't see who's hitting me. Some stuff I kind of could see this a little bit, but it was just wild as I'm being slapped on the back, or, having to say all this information. But that was supposed to be me leading into this next stage, which is the squire stage. I was gonna come from being a point one to just a point two, a point to a 3 or 4 or whatever. I think I was a 3. I wasn't an ace. I was number 3 in the pledge line. But I can say from my memory, it was the most horrible experience I wouldn't want for anybody. It was very painful. It was very humiliating. And if really struck in the wrong place, I wouldn't have been talking to you right now. That's how scary that night was. And I remember the next day, everybody pretty much actually, let me kind of go back. Everybody who gotten hit and went through that experience like me had their white shirts, had the evidence of the tears from blood. Injuries that are shown were horrific to see. Some people, had like a bloody nose, lacerations on the back, all type of things that were going on. We didn't know all this was also we're infected with this blood disorder, blood disease called MRSA, which could have killed us, blood infection of the blood. So that was also something that was happening. But we're sharing bowls, sharing water down the line with, the same drinking out of the same bowl, and just military tack like we're trying to join the Marines or something, crazy stuff. So all this is happening. I'm just asking God to give us relief. The other pivotal event I could say was Super Bowl, where we're all having to basically once again, come up, create this party for the members of the group. This is the last, I think, one of the last big events that were really horrific for us, and we had to cook. We had to cook. We had to have everything pristine, sharing information while they come and party and torture us and beat and hit us. And one on that same night, I remember a guy who had crossed at the same school in the same chapter, maybe about a few years back, take his hand. He's about 400, 500 pounds, but take his hand and hit me in my chest. And as I recall that with you, this is while I'm standing there trying to recite information. I'm his number. We're the same number he just crossed years ago, right? And he's looking for me to be on point. I'm not on point. So he's assaulting me, and I could have straight up died. One of the ace, I think, that same night, who was much shorter, much frail, ran out the house because he was in pain. Ran out the house, and they went after him. The members of the organization of that chapter, they ran after him and pulled him back in, right? And they had to ask him all these questions, and why did you leave? What did it die? You could have got us exposed. Basically, is what they're saying. So things get crazy continuously, and the night that kind of ends it all, the last night we had got introduced to having hot sauce poured on our genitals, and that was extremely painful, extremely humiliating. And it was this idea that or belief that if they were to do that, that they would be giving you a warning to what STDs would feel like if you're out there messing around with different women and whatever. It's just a mind game of using some type of tactic like that. But again, you don't know whose life you're destroying, and you're trying to build them down and break them up and break that person and build that person up. So you're breaking them down, you're building that person up. It's what that mantra that gets tossed around a lot. So if you follow me this story, I know it's been quite difficult to hear some of these things, but these are just the recollections that I'm coming back to. But as that night happens, we're all having to rush to the bathroom so we can get some milk poured on us, on our genitals, water, because the pain was like extreme, excruciating pain, sharp, stinging pain. And I said, I don't know if I can make another night. I'm literally feeling like I'm dying. And the whole time I didn't know or realize that I was dying, that my life was slipping away. I was falling. I was feeling sicker than sick. I couldn't really even move correct. I was walking in places and I just was not all there. And I remember just feeling like, you know what? I need a new bandage. I need something to stop the pain. I just need to go see somebody and talk to somebody. So I went to the school clinic. I went to the school psychologist first. I said, this is what's going on, XYZ. I'm really feeling like I'm about to die, but I don't want to tell you who it was and whatever. I need this to be confidential. And they said, even though like you're sharing that information with me, how much more time do you think you have left? Because from what you're sharing with me, you could die literally the next day if you're not seen for all the injury that you're going through and everything that's happening. This is about your life. Will you lay down your life for them? And I started to really think about that. Would I? I don't know if I could. So I made a conscious decision that at least let me take the time. Let me take the time and just see how my behind is doing, because it's in pain. I can't even take a shower. I need bandages that aren't even helping anymore. And I think I might have taken like an Advil or two every now and again, but none of that was helping. And maybe I just need to get cleaned up, maybe even stitched up, and I'll be on my way. I get down to the school clinic, you guys, and when I took my bandage off, I basically already told him, but first and foremost, that I hurt myself down the steps, something like that. Like I fell down because I was naked, slip and fall, and that's how I got the cut. They knew from the time that I took my pants off that the pooling of blood, the black area that was, my skin deteriorating in that space and dying, was not the cause of me having a slip and fall. This was something worse than that, much worse, that would require me to have surgery to be removed. And my mother had to be called. I was so adamant about not having that happen, but my mother had to be called. My mom was notified for me to come all the way from where she was, about 2 hours away, to come see me in the hospital. My line brother that was really close with, he was there with me, but kind of forewarned me and so said, I know you got to go to the hospital. What did you say who we were? Did you mention us and this and that? That was the first thought from him, not really truly about my well being. But anyway, we get to the hospital. The doctors basically open up the wound, open up the bandages, and they can see very much that this doesn't look good. That this is going to require surgery. And from right then on, the case was starting to be built, and an investigation then ensued very quickly, very fast. As that happened, the next day, my case was on the news. But that night, let me not fast forward this. That night, I did have to go into surgery, and they had to admit me because they had to remove dead tissue from being, that area was infected, and it could have seriously, at that point, killed me. So I didn't really, time was of the essence to get the tissue out and start a new healing journey with what I had left. So, where do I go from here? So that happens. The next day happens. It's excruciating pain beyond belief. Nothing I'd wish on anyone to have an open, gaping wound such as what I had. And me clinging onto my mother's hand for strength to get through it. And of course, I had pain meds, but not even the best pain med out there, Percocet or whatever, could have guarded the pain that I felt. That was on level 10,000 for me. And that's how I knew that, what? This is just me in this room, in this hospital bed. Where's the rest of the guys who are also, where's this we now? It's just me in this bed getting through this. And this is the worst day of my life. And this feels like so unfair. This is like the week of Valentine's Day. And there's not a single feeling of love in this whole world for me right now than what I'm going through. That's the lowest low that you could ever imagine. Where the story continues is I start my healing journey. I go into wearing this wound vac machine, which you haven't seen. It's like a tube hooked up to the wound itself on my rear end. Having a wound care nurse come in 3 times a week for 3 weeks, changing out the gauze and re-cleaning it so that it's healed. It requires another surgery, unfortunately, where I had to get some skin cut off from my thigh and replaced. And months, if not years, of psychological stress, PTSD, of feelings of fear, all those things. I share my testimony, my experience as more so a sense of reflection for me. 17 years ago, I was a different person. Obviously, I was younger. I wanted so bad to fit in this space, to fit in this group, and I have to do this just from the thought of, it was every wrong that I've ever done that I deserved it. And those are the things that I said. But if anything at all, I pray that this testimony gives you some clarity on what you could possibly experience if you so choose to go down that same path to be a part of an organization, or if you're a parent who just want to understand how severe these things can go and who has been really affected. Many of the guys who were a part of that pledge line went ahead and still crossed into the organization. Despite what I went through, despite anything at all, they decided to keep on going. And of course, as an investigation happened, I was cut off and I was ostracized because I was the snitch, because I was the person who said enough is enough, because I said this is where the silence ends. That I was tired of living in this space that, you know what, everybody's just for themselves. This idea or this thought about me being a brother could be literally put under the rug as if I'm nothing anymore. And I think about members who continued the pledges that did continue after one of their own died during a process, and how they were treated and how they continue to go on living as if, you know what, nothing happened, as if it was just a part of the process. And who they were doesn't matter anymore. I still matter to someone. I still have a purpose here, and that is to be a protector, to be the person who has the biggest heart in the world, and to share stories not only like my own, so you get a better perspective and understanding, but understanding that these are real people being hurt. These are real people going through the unimaginable pain, the feeling of isolation, which I felt. I remember one night I was isolated to a level where the stress was so hard on me. I just bursted out crying. I just cried and I cried and I said, I just want to be with my family again. I just want to feel love again. I don't want to feel like the people that I'm with or around, don't like me because of whatever reason, or they don't are not good, solid people. It hurt my heart that that was the torment that I was fighting, that was the torment that I was living with. Are you hearing me? That was the feeling of what we call people mention in the Greek space hell week. That was hell month. January 2009 was hell month. Everything that we were doing was replicating the feeling of being in hell. What does the Bible tell us about hell? Hell is told to be this place where it's like a furnace, a fiery furnace, despair and suffering. And when you are creating that space of suffering and torment and torture and despair, this is where the ugly part of this happens, is where you start seeing people, you see death and destruction happen. When you emulate, excuse me, you are inviting that energy, that negative energy for harm in such a way that is so damaging. But let me say this, that every situation, there's a reason for everything. There's 100% a reason for everything. And I truly am giving love and light and respect to the families who have been affected. Because I have to say, well, it's a reason that this happened to me, that my life was spared, that I could help someone and help save their life. Maybe I could mentor someone, or maybe I can help guide someone in the right space. Are you following me? What you're hearing right now? I know I've been talking for over 53 minutes, but I have to put it into perspective so you can understand and paint the picture for you. This is not a game. This is the type of activity that changes people. It breaks them down. Even years later, I'm still affected by this. There's certain things that I don't involve myself with because it's just not my community. I don't pull up at the Greek picnics. I don't go to the Greek fest. I don't go to places like that for me, just because it's just a sense of awkwardness. Excuse me. It's a sense of awkwardness with that just won't allow me to be there. Or the chance that I might run into some of the guys who were, a part of that and what they did to me, and how that could be a conflict. And I did run into two of them before, at a club years later, and I just froze. I stood there. I didn't say nothing to them. I had to remember they were looking up at me. I didn't look up at them. I wasn't interested. I know they were full of it. I know that they so badly wanted to, see that I see them. And if I could tell them now, I'd tell them screw them. I would. Because I knew what they're all about. And I know when you commit those kind of harm to people, there's nothing good that really comes to you. because what goes down in the dark, it definitely does come to the light. So I'm going to leave you with this. I hope and pray that this message is received with love and light. To those who have been listening and you feel triggered, you feel angered, I respect and understand how you may feel. Some of this information is sensitive, and I should also have warned you that that also could be the case. So forgive me for not warning you for that. But I hope this also gives you a better perspective that when these things happen, it's not just the person that is happening to, it's everybody else around that person. And the culture continues to fuel these behaviors when it goes unchecked. We have to do everything in our power as a community to look over and check and make sure that the schools are doing everything in their power to see that this is maintained in a proper fashion when it comes to a process, that it doesn't include harm, and that kids, young people, can join an organization that they would choose and know that they're not going to be physically, verbally harmed as well. So I hope that, again, that this channel, this space continues to be a place for you to visit us again. My name is Uncle Chris. This is Where the Simon Sends. Thank you for listening to another episode of Cultured Unplugged here on the podcast. I just want to take a quick second to just give you a call to action if you're a parent, to just make sure that your kids fully know what hazing is and what these organizations could do as far as being on a college campus, just being able to listen and understand that they see harm, that they walk away from it, and they always protect themselves. Stay in communication with your kids to understand and just look at the signs. There's signs that hazing leaves scars, and it leaves sometimes the invisible aspect to it that can be damaging, psychological. So just continue to communicate with your kids. If you're a teacher, educator, talk to your students. Be knowledgeable about what's going on in their lives beyond campus. That little bit of time just to understand and ask those right questions could be the meaning of them having their lives saved. And then if you are someone who's just like myself, who's interested in organizations that are out there to help end hazing and provide awareness, I highly, highly encourage you to visit the hazinginfo.org and stophazing.org, which are two great organizations for anti-hazing. We have collaborated with them, and they have done immeasurable but wonderful, inspiring work. We hope that you'll continue to follow us and continue to help support us. Share this audio, this podcast, with someone who needs to see it and someone who needs to hear it. This is Where the Sound Sends. Thank you.